I'm doing research right now, guys. But I do want to make a video, and I don't know if you can read this stuff here, or if like I can make this font bigger. But right now, not in one-shotting people in PvP. That's another one I want to add to the list. I'm calling this the perfect version of WoW. And, you know, we started making this list last stream, but if anyone has anything to add to this, you know, and we're trying to make a compromised list of things that are in and out and just like one version of World of Warcraft. If there was just one version where everyone had to play, and I'm trying to include everyone in this. Now, I know that World of Warcraft is probably better with two separate versions of the game. You need a try-hard version of the game with Mythic rating, and then you need a classic version of the game with lower APM and less skill gap. But here's what I think is in, and well, first let's do what's not in the perfect version of WoW. Looking for raid, botting, boosting, and WoW tokens, layering, scaling in dungeons for leveling, transmog, flying mounts, super flashy spells, like your screen just exploding with spells, and one-shotting people in PvP. You know what I mean? So those are the things that are not in. Now here's some things that I think would be in the perfect version of WoW. Rated BGs, a Mythic Plus system, a full crafting system revamp. Bring back the pre-bis farm. So make the gear that you get from dungeons at level 60 be viable and actually help you towards clearing the raids. There needs to be a gear stepping progression at level 60. You hit 60, then you get pre-bis, then you do the raid. And I feel like right now in SoD, there is no pre-bis farm. You just go directly into the raid from the previous leveling raid. I really hope that they bring that pre-bis farm back to the game. Because for me, what I did on my Paladin tank, as soon as I hit 40, I bought full greens off the auction house and went right into the raid. And I did just fine. And I don't think that you should be able to do that very easily like that. Dual spec. All raids have several BIS items for the full expansion. Every raid at level 60 has at least one or two BIS items that are BIS forever. One raid difficulty with harder end bosses. I think you could keep the difficulty casual and then make the last boss like a mythic difficulty level where you need a certain amount of gear to beat it. You have a 20-man raid and a 40-man raid. Yeah, like a first boss mythic difficulty, Tango, not like Mythic Sylvanas where it's 15 minutes long. But I'm talking like maybe a 4 or 5 minute fight, like a first or third, maybe fourth boss mythic kind of difficulty. Like, you know what I mean? Like you need to be geared. And we're talking like Naxxramas Kel'Thuzad. It would be too hard for classic Andes. Manny, keep in mind here. Keep in mind, guys. Keep in mind. We are trying to appeal to retail and classic and meet in the middle. This is the perfect version of the WoW. So just for a second, start thinking compromise and not, nah, one side wouldn't like it. Nah, one side wouldn't like it. We're compromising and we're thinking of the best compromise for one version of WoW. Nine easy bosses, one hard boss. You know what I mean? That's the compromise. The classic Andes, they would probably just do 9 out of 10 and call it a day. And the hardcore guilds would attempt the last boss. Something like that. And that's what I think was a decent compromise for right now. The amount of casuals that play all versions of the game is massive. That is true. Buffs buff group raid 1 button and 0 mana cost. Oh, all buffs. 1 hour buffs for all classes is in there. Okay, let me keep going. Account-wide runes for the runes that are the same. For same runes on alts. Account-wide runes for the same rune on alts. So you don't have to do dark horses on every alt. An XP boost will unlock for alts. Account-wide reputation and attunements. So you don't have to do attunement quest lines and reputation again on your alts. A few more flight paths in the game and faster flight paths so we can get rid of like the warlock summoning economy and just it shouldn't take 15 minutes to go on a flight path. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. 1 hour buffs for all classes instead of 10 minutes for paladins. Add things like mage table into the game, the quality of life things that retail has. Instant mail when you're sending gold to the same account. Put a bulletin board in the main city where people can post recruitment. They can post they can put looking for members so we can clean up the trade chat a little bit. Obviously, they're doing really good with separate tabs for services and things like that that you can sell in game. And I was thinking instead of world buffs, guys, they remove world buffs and they add a secondary profession called Bard that plays songs in the town. And if you go listen to the Bard for 5 minutes, it'll give you a world buff. And this will give people a reason to gather in one place. Terrible New World ripoff? Well, I ripped that off from Star Wars Galaxies, which came out 20 years before New World. And they had a profession called Dancer. But the thing is, the world buff mechanic, I don't really... Like, where you have to go around the world and get world buffs and stuff. I like it because it's people gathering in one place. And I think that anytime people are gathering in one place, it makes the game feel alive and it makes you feel like you're not playing a dead game. The Bard would get tips. Like, you could tip the Bard. He would play songs in the city and you could tip him. And it could be like a secondary profession or something like that. I'm not sure what the compromise is for world buffs. There's a lot of people that don't like them and a lot of people that do. And so you take these two things, you take all the people that don't like world buffs, you take all the people that do, and you say, what is the middle? What is the middle? Let's do that. I'm saying remove them all. Well, you can't. That's not meeting in the middle, Tango. We're trying to meet in the middle right now. Leave them as they are and get rid of them are not the options. I'm telling you, those are not the two options. There has to be meat in the middle. What I'm wanting is just an easier way to get the world buffs, because right now it takes me 2 hours on Classic WoW to like go around and get all the world buffs, and I have to be on it at a certain time. Have them drop one every 30 minutes in all the main cities. That's a good thought. Parsing is optional. Ban the logging websites. So getting rid of something completely that a large majority of people like, if it's something like around a 50-50 like-hate ratio, you can't get rid of it and you can't leave it the way it is. You have to change it to try and accommodate both sides. Like, there has to be compromise for pretty much everything. Now, obviously some of this stuff would never ever happen, but we're just theory crafting. What if we met in the middle on everything? The world buffs are a tough situation. I do think that players should have to gather together a lot in the game, but it shouldn't take very long. World buffs should persist through death, but having a timer solves those issues. Okay, Brooding, I actually like that better, because that solves both issues. World buffs last through death, so you still have to get them every 2 hours, but they last through death. Now, an easier method of obtaining the world buffs, quicker method of obtaining world buffs, I feel like is important. And you could gather in separate places, like separate in any city, you'd gather and the bards would be playing and you could get the world buff. Something like that. where people have to gather in order to make the world feel populated and you get your buffs. This one is tough to deal with. The world buff one, meeting in the middle with the world buff thing is very tough. 1 hour buffs for all classes, mage table, and then a bulletin board in the main cities. I like bulletin board in the main city because that brings people to gather around and like look at the bulletin board. So you could have a retail style system, but don't allow people to look at it anywhere. Like, they make them go to the town or at least outside of the dungeon where they can look for people that are looking for a group there. A long burn phase on every boss. Okay. Longer boss fights than 30 seconds. I think is reasonable, right? There shouldn't be 30-second bosses like Molten Core, right, guys? Does anybody like 30-second bosses? I mean, sometimes bosses are dying in like 10 seconds in Molten Core in speedrun groups. That's a little bit too easy, right, guys? Longer boss fights than Molten Core. World buffs trivialize the content. I am against world buffs. I'm against world buffs first and foremost. I don't like them. But what I do like about them is that players come together in a certain area every 2 hours or all the time. You know what I mean? Like, that makes the game feel like you're a part of like this community and you get to see everybody in one spot, and you may not realize the impact that it has on the game, but it's a big impact on the game. In order to make the world feel full, you need to see people. More world bosses outside of raids. Okay, I would like to see more world boss content, but the thing about world bosses is that the servers can't handle open world stuff. I would like open world bosses too. I don't know how they can remove layering and server caps and have no lag. World of Warcraft, I mean, in a perfect version of WoW, we'd obviously have no lag. I'm not sure if that technology is out yet. Maybe it'll come one day. Instanced world boss raids. So basically, Gruul's Lair. They could bring back, they could add in the game like Gruul's Lair, like one boss. Did anyone like TBC, the one boss raids? Magtheridon and Gruul's Lair. Instance world bosses like Magtheridon and Gruul's Lair. You could just make all the world bosses instance fights. That makes sense. That's a solution. If you can't have big open world content, you got to make it instance content. And so that's a meet in the middle kind of thing. So Dunpeel, what they could do, because the design team don't have enough time to pump out more than one raid per phase. Now maybe they do in SoD because the raids are already out, but they're revamping all of them. The items, the fights, the scaling, they're redoing everything. So if it was one raid and one instance world boss, I think that would be cool content. Or if it was a 20-man, a 40-man, and one instance world boss, that would feel like it's a lot more content. What about arenas? Does the perfect version of WoW have arenas in it? And the thing is, like, Classic was never meant to be balanced for the arena. So I'm not sure if it belongs. But Classic is very hard to balance for PvP and PvE. Yeah, I don't think that arenas work right now in this version of WoW. I think there's a reason that PvP doesn't work in a lot of MMOs. Arena and Classic is fine only if it awards nothing. Well, here's the thing. Mythic Plus, Arenas, Rated BGs, all of it awards nothing but titles. I don't like no rewards for M+. The thing is, you can't have Mythic Plus loot. In Classic, I don't think it belongs. There'll be meta in Mythic Plus just like there is in PvP. Exactly. I mean, at the top, everything will form a meta. I like an infinite Mythic grind. I don't think here's the thing, guys. If not getting Mythic Plus and then adding Mythic Plus with loot and the vault system is like the both opposites ends of the spectrum, and we meet in the middle, you know, what's the middle of like no Mythic Plus and then exactly the same retail Like, you can't have everything from retail. Look at Mythic Plus. Everyone is doing plus 25s for no loot. Exactly. Rating and pride is everything. That's the people that Mythic Plus is in the game for. It's just rating and pride. That's it. You do the raid, you get the gear. Mythic Plus would drop the exact same loot as doing the normal dungeon. I don't think that you should get rewarded for doing Mythic Plus. I think that that's a compromise of not having it in the game and adding it in the game, but avoiding the full Mythic Plus system and loot and everything. Yeah, so just consider normal difficulty as a 20 plus Mythic difficulty, and then if you push any Mythics higher than that, it's just prestige. That's the way I look at it. It's like, just put it in the game for people to do it if they want to do it. But you don't have to give loot for it. I mean, maybe arenas and BGs could give you a little bit of progress towards your rank 14. But here's the problem. When you start doing arenas, you start to kill BGs. And so there isn't enough players in the game to like populate both systems, I would say. I like that's the best idea I think I've heard so far is Mythic Plus can give you pre-raid bis. Well, you can't compromise too much. But the thing is, guys, dungeons and mythics, mythic level dungeons would already be giving you pre-raid bis. That's what it already is that. Because the pre-raid bis comes from the dungeons. I don't want to get into like the design of like the item levels and stuff too much, but like let's say I don't know if I like the idea of there being a normal version of the dungeon that gives loot, and then a mythic version of the dungeon that gives loot, and then a scaling version of the gear based on how high you push the key version of loot. I don't think that belongs in Classic. That's a totally different game. And I definitely don't think that there should be a vault in the game at all. Yeah, and retail doesn't really have any rewards right now for playing arenas. It's just titles. Right? There's you get all the same gear now, like instantly. Like all of your gear scales in PvP to max level. So there's no advantage of hitting Gladiator anymore in retail, where you used to have the best gear. I don't know. I like talking about this kind of stuff. And the moment that you give Mythic Plus or BGs or Arenas gear, guys, you have to give it to the other three. So I think it's just better if you just leave it out. That's why it's better if it's just titles and mounts. We're gonna keep the ongoing discussion of the perfect version of WoW.